Voiceover with your host, Dee Foster III, where we discuss relevant topics that affect the culture with bold, independent commentary. Get ready to be inspired, enlightened, and encouraged.
Welcome to the Voice Over Now podcast. I'm your host, Dee Foster III, President and CEO of Wake Up Global Networks International, and I am so excited that you are sharing with us on this very special podcast. Listen, you know the routine at the beginning: like, share, subscribe to the channel, and you want to get all of your people in to hear this very vital discussion. Before we introduce our very special guest today, I just want to follow us on our social media platform so that you know what's going on with Wake Up Global Networks. On Instagram is Wake Up Global Media. Wake Up Global Media. On Facebook is Wake Up Global Networks. And on Twitter, it's WGNINC. And we want to hear from you. Have you listened to our midweek drop, our audio midweek podcast on this channel? If not, I encourage you to do. We just drop some nuggets and keep it moving. And then on Sunday morning, the Voice of Hope Connection. All of the content right here on WPBMediaNetworks.com and on Wake Up Global Networks. I am so excited. Listen, before we introduce our guest, stay tuned. I want y'all to hang out with me. Over the next few weeks, we got some big announcements coming, some big events coming, and we want to include you. If you want to write to me, I want to hear from you. It's thevoiceovertheglobe@gmail.com. Thevoiceovertheglobe@gmail.com. You know, when I hear the scripture in Psalms 23, it reminds me of why I'm having this topic of conversation with my guest today. Psalms 23, David, probably the most distressful time of his life, running from Saul, his own son, has no kingdom. But he says these words: He restores my soul. And so without me understanding that for years, I thought nothing of it. But then upon meeting and connecting with our guest, who is a master therapist and a counselor when it comes to mental health, I begin to understand what David was saying. I've been traumatized, I've been mentally abused, and now it's time for my soul, my psyche, to be healed. That's most of us. I don't know one of us who couldn't rightfully pray that prayer: Lord, restore my soul. Now, how he does it is different for all of us. Some therapists, some psychoanalysis, some restore their own soul. I mean, it depends. But the fact of the matter is, every last one of us have been traumatized. Every last one of us can rightly ask and need to say, Lord, however you do it, whoever you do it through, restore my soul. Here to talk about that and more is my guest today on the Wake Up, the Voice Over Now podcast, Veronica Tucker Scott. She is a professional counselor. She owns and operates her own business, Metanoia Health Clinic. She is a mother, a wife, a sister to many of us, a co-laborer in kingdom work. And I am honored to have her voice on the Voice Over Now podcast to discuss this issue of trauma, mental health, restoration, wholeness, and freedom. Veronica Tucker Scott, welcome to the Voice Over Now podcast. Great to see you. You're looking great. You're looking great.
Great to see you. Thank you so much for inviting me to this venue. I deeply appreciate it.
I deeply appreciate you taking out your time I see you're suited for business. We're not going to hold you long. But before we go any further, I wanted to discuss how people can connect with you. We're going to have that information scrolling at the bottom of the screen. Give out as much information as you desire because we're going to get into some things.
Okay, so I can be contacted via email at metanoia mental health 52 at gmail.com. Also, I can be contacted by phone. My number is 443-312-9818. I do take Medicaid insurance and private pay customers.
And I highly recommend her. Yeah, favoritism, you might say, yeah, absolutely. But I still highly recommend her if you're seeking a counselor. And even if you don't think so now, when we finish this conversation, if you do, that information will scroll over the screen very often during this show. You heard me introduce the show from Psalms 23.
Mm-hmm.
And as a practitioner of mental health, what do you see in that? And I mean, you don't have to see what I see, but what's your concept when you hear somebody cry out, restore my soul? And what is the soul in this instance?
And so when I think about the soul, I think about the center. And so the soul encompasses those emotions, that we receive. And so in our soul, we carry a lot of different emotions. We carry joy, pain, anger. All of these different emotions make up our personality. And when our emotions have been damaged, we take on different ways of coping using our personalities. One of my favorite treatment modalities is internal family system. IFS therapy goes inside and deals with all of the parts, those different personalities that have become extreme due to trauma in our lives. And what trauma is a deeply distressing or disturbing experience that exceeds a person's ability to cope and process it effectively. And it can result from a wide range of events. So when you said, a lot of us have been traumatized, I think of David and think of being bullied, being pushed around by his family, being outcast because he was the runt. He was the little guy. You go on out in the field with them, few little sheep. That's what his brothers said. What you doing down here at the site? You're supposed to be back there with them few little sheep. So what did they do? They rejected him. They let him know, because you're not big enough, you can't even fight. You're not even worth being noticed. So going back with them few little sheep, that's trauma. That's trauma. And if you think about it, trauma, bullying, harassment, psychological, physical abuse, sexual assault, all of these things are trauma. Now, he received a lot of mental abuse. So,
Let me ask you this. Does a person always know if they've been traumatized? And if not, how is that process? Or go ahead.
No. I didn't know you weren't finished. Go right ahead.
No. Or is it the fact that we push trauma on a subconscious level, but especially when it happens, we know we've been traumatized? So I guess the question I was asking is, do we know when we're actually traumatized to seek the help and the restoration that we need?
sometimes we don't even know we're traumatized because trauma seems to be normalized because
Mm,
we kind of normalize trauma. Okay, so there are three major types: acute, chronic, or complex. Acute, from a single incident; chronic, repeated and prolonged domestic violence, abuse; complex, varied and multiple traumatic events, of an invasive or interpersonal nature. So think about it. They have a tool called the ACEs score. The ACEs score deals with all of the different things that happen to us in our lives. Okay, so and ACEs means adverse childhood experiences. So, as a child, did you watch your parents fight? Did you grow up watching them fight? That's trauma, but it gets normalized. Okay.
mm.
Um, we're getting, spare the rod, spoil the child, yeah. But when that rod is your fist, when that rod is a shoe, when that rod is a brush, and many of us have dealt with that, that can be traumatizing too. So a lot of times we don't even realize we're being traumatized because we've normalized trauma. This is how I treat you when you're bad. And so we normalize that and pass it down.
Wow. This is good stuff. I'm gonna get back to that, but you are a counselor and you are dealing primarily in mental health. Talk a little bit about the specifics of your business. I know there are different branches
Mhm.
of mental health services. What particular branch or what particular method do you use in order to bring your clients back to wholeness?
I I use internal family systems.
Okay.
Internal family systems is the therapy that I got when I was going to college. In order to become a therapist, you've got to have sessions. So you know what it's like to sit on both sides of the table.
And may I interrupt and say that I think it's very vital that people know that you do have a degree in counseling from Loyola. Am I correct?
Yes,
Yes, a master's degree.
yes.
Yes, I thought that was very important because I always want our viewers to know that when we bring a guest on, we try to bring the best in that particular area and the most qualified. So go ahead. I just wanted to make sure that our audience
Mhm.
understood that you speak with experience and credentials.
Yes, I have a master's in pastoral counseling, and I also have a master's in psychotherapy. So, absolutely. And working with internal family systems helped me to heal from my childhood trauma. It helped me to work through them. It helped me to have a better response when those triggers come up. And
Mhm.
so internal family systems helps us to go in and deal with those stuck places. We carry trauma sometimes from in utero. You know, you're carrying this baby. This child knows that maybe you didn't want this child. You just happened, oh my gosh, I got pregnant. I got to carry this child. I don't even want this baby. Well, we transfer that to our children. And so they can come out of the womb and feel rejected.
This was powerful. I learned this probably the greatest from the 90s or 80s crack epidemic. And it was I have to be honest, it was the first time that I was hearing that babies were actually being born addicted to
Yes.
crack cocaine because of what they were receiving while they were still in the womb. So I'm thinking, based on what you're saying, if you can receive a natural or physical addiction through the womb, how much more that which is soulical, that which is spiritual, that which is not felt, not touched, not seen. And so I thought that's why one of the reasons this conversation was very important, that we understand what being mentally whole, how important it is, but even more important to make sure that we are whole so that we do not continue to pass trauma to future generations. Talk about that.
And so it's funny that you said that, because when you said that, it triggered me to think about legacy burden. So I can speak from my own. I'm very well versed in my own legacy burden. So my legacy burden is work, 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 work.
Sound like
Don't take a
Rihanna.
break.
You ain't got to work.
Don't take a break, because if you take a break, you may be lazy. Because see, when I was growing up, my grandmother used to say, don't let them people see you being lazy. You gotta work, you gotta be twice as good, which translated in my mind to you're only half as good. So you spend your whole life trying to live up to or make people think you are just as good, not better. I just want to be just as good. That was passed down to me. So therefore, in my life with my own children, I worked double shifts to make sure that I didn't have to ask anybody for anything, because I'm a woman and I can handle this, and I hold this stress and I can handle everything that's going on. But that was trauma.
Wow.
That was trauma for me. And I traumatized my children. So, I don't know why we don't want to admit that, but when we can admit that and have those hard conversations with our children, that's when we can start to heal some of this trauma and we can stop the cycle.
Yes.
I had to apologize. I didn't know that I was traumatizing them. I thought I wanted to make them better than me. Out of my fear, I was hard to make them better than me. But what that said to them is, you're not perfect enough. So now you got to work hard so you can please mama, because you're not perfect enough.
It's interesting, and I appreciate your transparency in that, because all of us, to a degree, I mean, let's face it, even in some ways, our parents disciplined us, enacted trauma, or the way that they punished us enacted trauma. And again, it's only because that probably was the only way they knew. But I think it's time to stop the curse or stop the legacy burden of handing these traumas down. And they only happen, in my opinion, as you said, when you have the conversations, when we make things right and we acknowledge as adults, hey, not too proud. I didn't do it right. I missed it. Don't do what I did. Learn from me so that your children won't have to suffer those traumatic experiences that you suffered because of me.
But first, we got to get honest and say, guess what? I did traumatize you. Think about this. I think you and I both are the oldest. We're the eldest.
Yes.
You are the responsible one. You have the burden of being responsible for everybody else because you are the oldest. So you are the hero. You are the one that makes the family look normal. You're the one that has to excel and achieve, and everybody has to say, yes, I am so proud of Darnell for what he's done. Yes, but do you know how big of a burden that is on us?
Yes, I do.
To have to carry, and the burden of when you're going to have them babies. Well, maybe I don't want no babies, but see how that's traumatizing. So now I'm going to run out. I'm going to get married to somebody I really don't want to get married to. I don't even really want to be married.
Now you're going down a deep rabbit hole. You're going down deep. If I get on that,
and see, so I'm just saying, but see how subtle it is?
Yes. Yes,
So
yes,
that's what I want people to know, because see, when we hear the word trauma, we think, oh my gosh, I saw a murder, I saw this. Trauma is, we got big T, we got little t trauma. So things traumatize us and we don't even realize it because we think that this is normal. You know, a woman that has a man that abuses her may have seen her mother be abused, and she may have seen her mother be abused. That's trauma. But we think this is normal. He beat me because he loves me. We're learning that's not true. But when I was growing up, seeing stuff like that or hearing your neighbors fight, that was normal.
yeah, yeah. And I'm glad we are waking up to the fact that that's abnormal, but we're waking up to a maturity as a society. And I think the millennials are pushing us and
Mhm.
forcing us to talk about it and deal with
Yes.
it, because the difference is they didn't come up in the hush hush culture that most of us came up. In other words, I was reading a book years ago, you probably heard of it, and I thought about it relative to this particular show by Michael Baisden, uh, Men Cry in the Dark. That kind of is the condition that we grew up in. We suffered trauma in the dark. We did not voice the fact that we were feeling oppressed, depressed. Shake it off, get up, keep going, keep going. And yet, to go back to where we started at the beginning, as powerful, as strong, as anointed, if you will, as David was, there's a time when life caves in, and you're right. So let's paint the picture. Let's take it out of biblical, sweet biblical context and put it in 2024. Okay? Your son, your blood son Absalom, is trying to kill you, right?
Yes.
The king that you have given your life for is jealous and trying to kill you. Because you are so great at what you do, nobody wants to accept you in their army. So that's rejection. I want you to follow me here, because
Mhm.
even though it's David, it's real, right?
Yeah.
There's more. There's more. Um, your wives, your wives have left you because she thinks you're crazy, right? So no one wants to take you in. You're hungry. No one wants to chance being seen with you. Shame. Wow. I can't eat. Now, I've been through some
Your
stuff.
daughter has
One
been
time.
raped by her brother.
Yes, yes, yes. So you think this was a family of trauma. And I admire. He cries out in the middle. He restores my soul. I can't take, I'm like on the brink of breaking down, on the brink, right?
But
Of
you know
breaking
what?
down.
Think about this. Karmic debt, because Bathsheba was not his wife.
Right.
He took Bath. So all of these things started piling in. And then why did I go with Bathsheba? Why did I want to be with her? So all of these reasons, what was I looking for? What these are things that, see, we make stories really pretty, but
Yes.
deep and underneath, and then also, if you're talking about mental health, remember, the church was the end all be all. The pastor was who you went to. We didn't deal with mental health, especially in our communities, because mental health providers did not look like us. So
Yes.
we did
Yes.
not deal with mental health.
And now you said something. You cracked open an egg I want to deal with. This is what I began to see a few years ago. When it was just the pastor or the spiritual community dealing with mental health, it was a demon then.
Mm-hmm.
Because most had not been trained, even if there even were programs like the one that you have graduated from. So all we knew was, or all they knew, I knew different, but all a lot of them knew was, you need deliverance. You need deliverance. You need freedom. You need to stick it out. And so everything was demon, demon, demon. And then here come your sector to say, wait a minute, no, certain things are spiritually oppressive, but there are certainly things that are mentally oppressive that have to be
Chemically,
dealt with
chemicals in your
chemically.
brain,
Like,
your body, chemicals.
like, say, for instance, I still struggle with the fact that it's not been dealt with, especially when you look in Baltimore City, the lead paint poisoning from the 70s and 80s that nobody deals with. And we wonder, why does this child seem like they have ADD? Oh, let's put them on some Ritalin and dope them up, when you've not dealt with the chemical imbalance or what's going on with the wellness of the mind. You said this on another show. I want you to break this down again. I forget how you said it, but you made this thing so clear. You said the mind, you used the car.
Oh,
Yeah,
I said the
talk about
mind is
that.
the engine that runs the car. So your brain, your mind, your up here, this is the engine that runs the car. So the car can be absolutely beautiful. It can be a Lexus. It can have all the bells and all the whistles, and the tires are dressed and everything looks beautiful, but the engine doesn't work.
Wow.
So if the engine doesn't work, neither does the car. It's
Wow.
just there. And what we do is we do the same thing. We will dress the outside. We will get our hair done. We will get our nails done. Men will get the whatever they need, the Beijing if they're getting older. We get all of this stuff done. And the inside we're suffering. And so a lot of us use the word when you say, "Hey, how are you doing today?" You know, we use the word fine. Oh, I'm fine. And there's an acronym for fine: freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. That's what we're saying when we're saying I'm fine. But and so it's about being the therapist, it's about hearing what's behind that I'm fine. Because we don't tell people. We don't tell people I'm not fine. And when I usually work with people, what they'll say is, I don't want to burden somebody, or I don't want you to think I'm crazy. You know, I have these conversations in my head, and I just look at them and say, really? So do I. And when they hear me say that, they're like, I said, yes, sweetheart, I talk to myself all the time, and sometimes out loud. And when people say, are you talking to yourself? I say, actually, I'm having a meeting. And because we are parts. Here we look. I take mental health very seriously, but I'm going to tell you, in the therapy room, sometimes it's so heavy. We need some comic relief so that we can break open something.
And I think, and you know what? As you say that, I've been saying this for a while. It seems like over the last 20 years, everything in life has gotten so serious, even comics. It's like, under this, in my opinion, guides of being politically correct, we become a very tense, serious, can't laugh, can't make a joke. And yet the script says laughter does good like medicine. But how many people, check it out, check it out, check it out. And if you're watching, check yourself out. How often do you see people laughing and smiling today? As you're driving about, as you're in the mall, as you're in restaurants, most people boot it up. I call it boot up. They boot it up. They serious.
Got your
They look
game
like
face on.
They got an attitude. All of that causes a degree of stress and anxiety, which also affects the mental health. So when somebody like me who comes along, who I don't know where I would be if I didn't joke. That's one of my outlets. If I didn't laugh, that's just one of my personalities. I don't keep stuff bottled up. I don't know where I would be for all that me, you, and others have gone through. But I think mental restoration can start, to me, with something as small as learn to smile and laugh again and lose. Life ain't that serious. Yeah, life is serious, but what is that song? Tomorrow the sun will shine.
Yeah, the
Don't worry about
sun will come up tomorrow. That's the theme to Annie.
Annie. That's it.
Annie,
tomorrow. Yeah. It ain't that. If you're viewing this, put a smile on your face. Some of y'all watching this booted up. Some of y'all watching this real serious. No. Mental health begins with smiling, laughing. I laugh at myself. I have conversations with myself and I laugh at myself. I'll say something. I say, now you know that was funny as I don't know what. You know, or I say, now you know that was corny. Or I said, all right, yeah. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Have to. I mean, we have to. I was cleaning out my sock drawer and there was a glove there. I said, you must be in witness protection because we can't find the other glove. You know I'm going to get rid of you. And so we have to laugh. One of the things that I push to my clients is one of the P's. One of the P's is playfulness. We forget that we need to be playful. And so I would sit in my office and I would have bubbles and I would blow bubbles and the guy would be like, what are you doing? I say, pop them. Because it gets you to play. You know, in the Message Bible, it talks about in Micah, he says, take God seriously, but don't take yourself so seriously.
Come on now.
Don't take yourself so seriously.
That's right.
And because when we take ourselves seriously and everything is so tense and tight, that causes hypertension. Think about the word.
Wow.
My tension is on hyper.
Yes.
Heart disease, all of these things, physically, headache, digestive system, fatigue, heart racing, sweating, jumpy. Those are signs of trauma, but they're also signs that there is something going on, and it's not always physical. So if it's physical and they go and they check it out and they like, well, the doctor said everything looks good, then it may be something mentally. What is causing these things? What are causing these symptoms? When you're up all night and you can't turn, first of all, we think that we stop thinking. You never stop thinking. Your brain is working 24/7. It shuts down enough for you to rest, and that is how your body repairs and restores. So between 2 and 4 a.m., that is when your body is repairing and restoring. That's why it is important to get 7 to 8, and some people only need 6 hours of sleep per night. We need a time, but if your mind is racing and you get up, I used to get up and go to the bathroom and I would dread it because I know when I come back, my mind would be racing and it would be thinking about all of these things and I could not get back to sleep. So I had to learn, how do I work with this? Some people, it's so severe they need medication, but some people, it's about even being mindful, being able to focus. That's how we started, focusing on my breath, focusing on breathing in and breathing out, focusing on the in-breath and out-breath. Breath work is good to help us to be able to heal. It is a great coping skill. These are some of the things that we can use. If you find yourself where you cannot sleep, your mind is always racing, you're always on edge, you're always anxious, you're always worried about things that may or may not happen, then maybe you need to seek a professional. And because you see a professional, it does not mean you are crazy.
That's right. That's right. That's
It
right.
does not.
Speaking of profession, as we wrap up for our last 5 minutes, I want to talk about your business. What what led you into this area of mental health? Did you, and I know this may be a corny question, but
Mm.
I want to know, and I'm sure the audience, did you always know that this was the field that you would embrace and do your work towards humanity? Or were there situations in your life that unfolded who
Mm.
led you in that direction? How'd you enter into this field?
So it's kind of twofold. As I got older, when I was going to a church, one of the pastors there said, "You're going to go to Loyola and you're going to become a therapist." And I looked at him like he had lost his mind because I wasn't going to college and do nothing. I didn't like school. But working as a corrections officer, I started as a corrections officer. I was a corrections officer for 30 years, and I watched people come to jail and leave and come back and leave and come back. And I wanted to know what makes them keep coming back to a place that you hate, that you complain about. And then I noticed that a lot of it, because I started working in the courts, was substance abuse. So I got really curious about substance abuse. Why do we continuously abuse the substances? Why do we keep? And so I thought about it, self-medication. Well, what am I medicating from? I'm numbing. I'm trying not to feel. And so when I started to look at it and I thought about it, I wanted to know how to help these people. And I wanted to know how to help myself. I wanted to know how to help me because I got caught up a long time ago too. Why did I want to numb? And see, here's the thing: we think abuse or we think numbing is always about substances. But I shopped till I dropped. I played games. Anything I watched endless hours of TV. These are called firefighters. Firefighters do exactly what they say, they fight the fire. So when I started feeling sad or lonely or rejected, then what did my firefighter do? My firefighter said, "Oh, let me come in and make her feel better." And so the firefighter came in and it would take me out. I would start watching TV and I'd end up being in this fantasy place. And so those reasons, those were the reasons that I really wanted to know, hey, wait a minute, not only what makes them tick, but what makes me tick? Why do I feel the way I feel? Why am I so afraid? Why do people say you're smart, but I feel dumb? Why do people say, "Oh my gosh, you really know how to articulate," but I feel like when I get in a room with people and they've got college degrees, I felt like blah, 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 blah. I needed to understand what that was. Why was I shut down? And all of the outside therapies that I did didn't help. But when I went inside
That's
and I was
it.
able to connect with a little girl who was so fearful because she was treated like she didn't know anything. She was abused and she was talked about and she was bullied. And when I got to know her and I was able to work with her and unlock
Hmm.
those blockages, I was able to heal her. And not saying that she doesn't come up to try to protect me, but when she comes up, because she knows that she can trust me. Because see, we don't trust ourselves. That's
No.
why we have doubt. We don't trust ourselves, but when I can sit with her and say, you know what, this is hard, but I got you. That's what made me want to help other people to get. You know how when you get something real good, you want to
Yes,
just get out there,
yes.
you want everybody to have it. Well, I learned everybody don't want it, but those that do want it, I can be that hope holder that holds hope for them until they can hold it for themselves.
What a powerful responsibility you have, especially as I believe because of the fallout 3 years later of COVID and the isolation and people being alone, that the field that you are in, along with the spiritual community, not the religious, but the spiritual community, is probably one of the most important fields in this day and time to help people process all that we have been through and all that we have inherited from our forefathers and from generations before us. I'm excited about your work. I've seen your work grow. There's something very, and that's why if you're viewing and you've been considering a therapist or getting some kind of help for you or your children, the reason I am recommending Veronica Tucker Scott is you see her transparency. And I often say, when it comes to the work I do, spiritual work with people, and the work that you do, counseling and mental health, transparency and people feeling like you are real are very vital to your success in helping them.
That is
So
important.
if you, I admire you, I appreciate it. This is a never ending subject. In the minute and a half we have left, talk about your business, Metanoia, and just kind of what you do, and again, how people can contact you.
So, metanoia, mental health, came out of the word metanoia. In the church, metanoia, repent. No, to change your mind. And so I pulled metanoia because metanoia is about changing a mindset. If you don't change your mindset, you won't change anything. And so I work with people on helping them to see their parts, notice their past, be able to deal with it, and know that everything that you need to heal is on the inside of you. I'm just here to navigate. I'm like GPS. I'm going to help you to get where you need to go, but you are ultimately the one taking the journey. So I spend a lot of time doing inner work with my clients. I spend a lot of time doing inner work with myself as well, because we're only as sick as the secrets we carry. So if you're trying to reach out to me, again, my email address is metanoia mental health 52 at gmail.com. I monitor that every day and I will get back to you. Also, my phone number is 443 312 9818.
It sounds like we're in a season where what you do and what we do are merging. You help people go within, that's my spiritual work. I go within to work on myself as you do. And so I'm seeing a big merger in the mental health and in the spiritual community. Hand in glove, working together. And it's interesting. Sometimes on both sides, we cross over the other side and we don't even know it, because it's
Absolutely.
so the work, the inner work. And I tell people it's the inner work. If we can get with the inner work, but as you said, physician, heal
Heal
thyself
thyself.
first.
Yeah.
And then we can go out and
Chiron, we are wounded healers. We heal, and as we heal others, we are healing. And here's the thing, the person, see, a lot of times, the person that hurt you will never, ever be the one that can heal you.
Ooh.
The person that hurt you will never. And here's the thing, you know what? They are responsible for what they did to you, but you are responsible for healing. they can't heal you. You can heal yourself. And holding on to what they did, I've worked with people because I work with grief as well. And I'll ask, so what graveyard are they buried in? And they'll tell me, I say, so why are you still there with your hand down in the grave? No, I'm not. I say, yes, you are. You holding on to them and they gone.
Yes.
They're gone. So now let's work with healing you. I was watching a movie and the lady said in the movie, okay, we got a big mess, spilt milk. What's the next thing we're going to do? He was like, I don't know. She said, we're going to get a paper towel and clean it up. And that was Jennifer Lewis. She said that. And I was listening to her book and she talks openly about her issue with mental health. And so and her issue with trauma and how she was being traumatized. And we've got to get open. And this is the thing I will say to anybody, if you have a mental health therapist, it is so important for you to be transparent with them because we can't help you with what we don't know.
Yes, absolutely. I concur 1,000 times. And that's where our professions are alike also. I want to say thank you for spending investing your time. If you're viewing this show, please share this. Please, this is very vital, very, very vital information. Please share this in your contacts, with your friends, with your family, with your tribe. We all need this. You may say, well, I don't need it. No, we all, whether you know it or not, we all need the conversation that we had today. Veronica Tucker Scott, thank you for being a guest on the Voice Over Now podcast. And we look forward to further informations, connections, and may the Father and Spirit continue to bless your business as you continue to bless others. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. This was a needed conversation, and it's definitely needed world over.
Yes. And if you're viewing, don't forget, we have some big updates coming. Stay glued to the Voice Over Now or go to our Wake Up Global Network's social media pages. We're going to be announcing some very big things in the next couple of weeks. And we believe that you will be blessed and benefited by them. Until next week, remember, or Sunday morning at 7 a.m. for the Voice of Hope Connection. You have a voice. Keep using it.
Thank you for being a part of The Voiceover. Please follow us on all of our social media platforms to stay connected to our upcoming shows and guests. Instagram at The Voiceover Radio. Twitter at DPropheticI. That's the letter D, prophetic, EYE. If this show has enriched you in any way, please share The Voiceover among your circle. Until next time, keep allowing your voice